Are you tired of quick fixes that never last? I've got something new for you. It's called the 21-Day Metabolism Reset, and it's designed specifically for women in midlife who are ready to finally feel leaner, stronger, and more energized without the gimmicks. In just 3 weeks, you'll learn how to fuel your body with the right foods, balance your hormones, and train smarter, not harder, so you can see results that actually last. And here's the best part. It's only $99 to join. You'll get my coaching, accountability, and proven plan that works with your life. So if you've been waiting for the right time, this is it. Click the link in the show notes. And if you prefer one-on-one coaching, I have options for you too. Health, wellness, fitness, and everything in between. We're removing the taboo from what really matters in midlife. I'm your host, Michele Folan, and this is Asking for a Friend. Today's guest is someone you're going to love hearing from again. My friend, writer, and truth teller, Jen Butler. If you've been with me for a while, you might remember Jen's first visit to the podcast where she opened up about her decision to go alcohol-free and how it reshaped her life. That conversation struck a chord with so many of you. Well, Jen is back, and she's got a new book coming out this October called Mom Rediscovered. It's raw, it's real, and it's all about peeling back the layers of motherhood to find the woman underneath, the one who may have been lost somewhere between diaper changes, school drop-offs, soccer practice, and that glass of wine at the end of the day. Jen's voice is refreshingly honest, sometimes funny, and always deeply relatable. We're going to talk about her book, her alcohol-free journey, and what it really means to rediscover yourself as a mom in the messy middle of life. And let's be real, Jen and I always have a great time together. So you're in for a lively, heartfelt, and maybe even a little sassy conversation. So grab your coffee, your walking shoes, or whatever you like to do while you listen, because this one is going to make you think, laugh, and maybe see your own story a little differently. Jen Butler, welcome back.
Oh my gosh, Michele, thank you. Thank you. That introduction just has me all up in my feelings already.
Well, it's so fun to get together with you. And you know what I love about doing this podcast is that you and I have never lost touch. We've
Yes.
kind of communicated over the years since you did that first podcast. And,
Yep.
you know, I think maybe the best place to start, just in case listeners hadn't listened to that first podcast, just to share a little bit about your background and what brought you to writing.
Oh my gosh. All right. So yes, because that was a couple years ago now, I think, that we did that podcast, right? As I was navigating my life coaching journey and my alcohol-free journey. And when this book was still just a dream and a goal, but not something physical that I can now hold in my hands, which is still very surreal. So I have always wanted to write a book. I have journaled voraciously since I was in 6th grade. It just was something that was always a goal. I always wanted to hold my own book in my hands, but I never knew what story I wanted to tell. I knew that I wanted to do some sort of nonfiction thing, kind of stemming from my journaling, sharing my story, but I didn't know what my story was. And it really wasn't until I started my alcohol-free journey, and you and I talked about that long ago, but I can also touch on that again. It's now been over 7 years that I've been alcohol-free. And once I started that journey, and certainly once I got to a point where I became a non-drinker, I thought, oh, now I have something that I really want to share, because I'm very proud of this journey. I will never say that I think everybody needs to stop drinking, but for me, that journey was about conquering something that was holding me back and regaining control over something that had control over me, and really rediscovering myself in that. So when I first started writing this book, it was really about my alcohol-free journey. And what I found was I kind of stalled out, and I felt really weird about that for a while. Like, why can't I finish this project? I've wanted to write a book forever. And it's because I realized that alcohol-free journey is just a part of my story.
Yeah.
It's just one part of the story that I wanted to tell. And there's more to me than that. And so that's what this whole book is about, really is about my motherhood journey. And alcohol and quitting alcohol plays a huge role in that. But also I touch upon diet culture and breaking up with diet culture. That's been a huge part of my journey. I talk about losing my professional identity and how hard that was for me. I really touch on all the aspects of what motherhood has been in my life. And, there's no finish line. I'm certainly not done with the work, but I had enough of an arc to be able to share my story. And it's so wonderful and surreal that I'm coming on and talking about it with you today.
When we first met, so you guys can't see Jen's background, but she has a plethora of books. You've always been a voracious reader.
Yes.
And I remember you had hinted about a book when we first spoke. But you did start writing because you built this really strong community through your Substack, and which was called Best Mom Never, which I love. How did that space shape your voice as a writer and a mom advocate?
Yep. So I love this question. I love my Substack. I still post there regularly. It's called Best Mom Never. And that really, the Substack has given me more confidence to really just share myself authentically. So I go on there and I talk about everything from, something very small that happened in my day to my entire book journey. So my Substack really helped me find and focus my voice, I would say. And it really, the comments that I started getting back from readers and the community that is formed around that made me feel like, oh, you know what? There are people who are resonating with my story. There are people who say, oh, I'm not the only one that feels that way. And that really fueled my motivation and desire to finish my book and get it out into the world.
All right. How long then did it take you to write it?
So I will answer this question, and anyone who's listening who aspires to write a book will feel very daunted by my answer, but I'm going to be honest. So this book from, really when I first started writing scenes that are in the finished version has been between 5 and 7 years, I would say, which seems like forever. I know that, and it seems so daunting. But now that the book is done, it makes me realize I couldn't have done it in any shorter of a time frame because I needed to be working on it as I was going through my alcohol-free journey. And I needed to be writing those scenes when I was feeling those things and when I was in it. But I also needed to complete my arc. So I needed to do more living. I couldn't have ended this book in 2019 when I stopped drinking, or 2018. I needed to do more living and figure out what my actual arc was. So that's why it took so long. It also took a while because, as I said, I sort of stopped and started. I thought it was just going to be a quit lit story. So just a story about quitting drinking. Then I realized I wanted it to be more, but I hadn't done that living yet. So I thought, well, maybe it'll be like a self-help memoir hybrid kind of thing. And I got some very precious and important advice from my friend Zibby Owens, who is, well, she's everything. She is a voracious reader, podcast host, publisher, bookstore owner. She's a wonderful and influential figure in the book space. And she said to me, don't try to play the market. Your story as it is worth sharing right from your heart.
Oh.
And when that was sort of like a permission slip. I'm a rule follower, Michele. You know this about me.
Yeah.
So it's almost like that advice was the permission slip I needed to let go of the idea of trying to do something fancy, self-help, memoir hybrid, and really just write my story. And I try to do the same thing on my Substack and just be real and offer something that I hope someone will see themselves in and that will help them feel like they are not alone.
Do you feel like that kind of theme is part of your own rediscovery journey?
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. I became so isolated when I had kids. It really was, and it just so happened, and I share this in the book, that my husband and I moved a lot when we had kids, and when we first had kids, because he changed jobs a lot. We also moved from a city to the suburbs because we wanted that experience once we had our first baby. And in the course of all those moves, I lost touch with friends, I lost community, and I became increasingly isolated as a new and exhausted mom. So the antidote to that was connection. And at first for me, it was, virtual. I had a lot of really important virtual connections in my life, but then I also made some really important friends in certain stages of my life. But all those people, whether they were virtual friends or real life friends, helped me realize, oh, I'm not the only one that's struggling here. I'm not the only one that's exhausted. I'm not the only one that feels like simply being a mom is not fulfilling enough, but at the same time has lost my professional identity. And that has all really helped. And that's what I'm now trying to do for other women by offering my story.
We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about motherhood and its many layers. A diagnosis of osteoporosis can feel scary and overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be the end of your story. The truth is you do have tools and resources to build stronger bones and protect your future. That's why I've partnered with Osteo Collective, an incredible platform dedicated to helping women navigate osteoporosis with confidence. From expert-led workouts and educational resources to a supportive community of women just like you, the Osteo Collective gives you the knowledge and encouragement to take back control of your bone health. And here's the best part. You can try it free for 1 week. Just click the link in the show notes to start your trial today and discover how to move forward with strength and hope. We are back. Before we went on break, you started talking about these many layers.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that we are. So caretaker, professional, worker sometimes, partner, friend. But we're those things to a lot of people. And we get lost maybe along the way because we stop being that to ourselves.
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And
we fall to the bottom of our own priority list.
Yeah. When did you finally discover that that's what had been happening with you?
It makes me sad to think about it because I wish I'd realized it so much sooner, but I think probably every mom can say the same thing. It really was when I'm going to phrase this awkwardly, but that's on purpose. When I first started stopping drinking.
Okay.
I know that sounds weird, but and I know we've talked about my alcohol-free journey before, but for those who don't know, so I was what I call a gray area drinker. And what that means is that I was stuck in the space between take it or leave it drinking, totally uncomplicated relationship with alcohol, and a full-blown capital P problem. I was in this murky fog in the middle where I had a really hard time going for more than 1 or 2 days without drinking. And once I started drinking, I had a really hard time stopping at 1 or 2 drinks and not having more. So I finally kind of reached what I call my soft rock bottom. So I never needed professional help, but I could not stop on my own. And I reached out to a group of anonymous women online. And I talk about this in the book. The book actually opens with the moment that I reached out for help and asked them for support as I attempted to complete Dry January. And that was really the start of my journey. Once I started getting into Dry January and the drinking fog, the grogginess cleared, and I was able to actually look at myself and kind of take stock of where I was in my life for the first time in years, that's when I realized, oh, I'm not in great shape here because I have been putting my partner before me, my kids before me, everything before what I actually need to take care of myself. And I've been using alcohol to cover up the discomfort that I felt about that and to numb the fact that I was putting myself last. So that's really when I realized it. And as I continued on my alcohol-free journey, and the other thing I want to say is when I started that journey, I did not start with the intent to quit drinking. I started that journey with the intent to regain control over drinking. For me, that became wanting to be a non-drinker. Doesn't happen for everybody. That's fine. But that's where I ended up. And so it was really at that point that I realized, oh, this is not how I want to be showing up. And if I want to show up differently, I need to start prioritizing myself and asserting my needs. And it took a lot of time and a lot of practice to actually do that consistently and without guilt.
So Jen's dogs are upset about something.
They went to daycare yesterday. I thought they would be tired, and they're not.
There's like a squirrel outside or the Amazon driver. I'm not sure which.
Seriously.
Which is usually
probably both.
Yeah. So I'm not editing that out because again, I don't.
Please disregard the dogs.
I don't care. Dirty hair. I don't care. We're winging it today, Jen.
I'm locking them in the closet next time, Michele.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. I've got 2 dogs, but they are crated right now because they go insane. So what do you think the biggest unexpected gift then was of quitting drinking?
I love this question too, because, there are certain things you expect, right? When you stop drinking, or even if you cut back on drinking, you expect your skin to look better. You expect to sleep better. And all of that happened. And that was all wonderful. But for me, the thing that I did not expect was the self-compassion that I gained from stopping drinking. I just really started liking myself again and started being so much nicer to myself. And that just felt so good. And, it's not necessarily our default, is it, to be nice to ourselves? We're so hard on ourselves. And for me, quitting drinking, achieving that, gaining the clarity that came along with that, starting to reprioritize myself, just really made me like myself again and just be nice to myself again. And that felt so good and continues to feel good. That has not gotten old.
Do you see parallels though between how moms use alcohol and how we use other coping mechanisms? It could be shopping. It could be.
Absolutely. It's all about the dopamine, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Online shopping for sure. Even, I used to read like Us Weekly magazine and try to get like little dopamine hits from there. I mean, you never know. Of course, food also is a huge one. Social media is huge. And I still fall prey to that. Like if I need a little boost, I'll go on and see like, oh, who's liked my most recent post? And that lights up the same reward circuit in our brain as alcohol or chocolate or whatever. So there are so many different coping mechanisms that we use, so many different, Glennon Doyle calls them easy buttons. And, I'm not here to say like, we're not allowed to have any easy buttons. Of course, we're all going to use our easy buttons, but there may be some that really are more damaging than others. And for me, alcohol was one that just needed to go. It was just too damaging. So I still eat Nutella. I still scroll social media, but I also am able to do it more mindfully. And for example, on social media, I've curated my feed. I realized that I was following certain accounts that just made me feel bad about myself. And so I stopped following those accounts, so it's more of like a curated coping mechanism now than it used to be, but also just being aware that we're doing those things, right? And being aware, like, I'm going to pick up my phone. I'm going to stroll for the next 20 minutes until my kids get home on the bus. And it might not make me feel that great, actually. Like, I can't expect to do this and feel really good afterwards. But you know what? I'm tired today. It's what I need in this moment. And that's also okay.
You also talk about breaking up with diet culture, which I think kind of goes hand in hand with this, right? I mean,
I think so too. Yep.
Yeah. And I too broke up with diet culture. And
look at us.
Oh, well, because it was all wrong. They had it all wrong.
Exactly.
It doesn't.
I love you just put that so simply. It's so true.
It doesn't work
because it's just
And I watch women who I think for me the biggest frustration, Jen, is how long is it going to take me to lose the weight? Like we're 2 weeks in. I don't see this working for me, and I'm going. It's because we're still mired in that diet culture of the 90s where we expected, if we starved ourselves, we could lose a few pounds.
Yep.
Well, it doesn't work that way.
And that it would stay off, right? Like, I know.
And it doesn't work for midlife. If you starve yourself, you're just going to shut down your metabolism.
Yep.
Yeah. And so
which is what happened to me, which was the last straw before I broke up with diet culture, which I talk about in the book.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. What was the defining moment that you said, okay, this is just not working?
So in 2018, 19, I became a kickboxing instructor, just a little part-time side hustle that was a really wonderful thing for me because, as I said before, I really needed more than just being a stay-at-home mom in my life. So I started teaching kickboxing, and that was wonderful. The gym was a great kickboxing gym. The one thing though was that the women who went there were very focused on what their bodies look like and on dieting to achieve certain things. So for example, someone told me at one point to stop putting creamer or oat milk or whatever in my coffee. Like, they were like, well, if you just cut that out, think about that. That's extra calories that you just won't be consuming, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And that takes all the joy out of life too.
Exactly. Yeah. I tried black coffee and I was like, this is terrible, but I felt like I needed to drink it black and never again. No offense to those who love black coffee. You do you. So working at that gym was a great experience in that it broke me out of stay-at-home motherhood and gave me my own thing, which was great. But it was not great in that I was surrounded by women who were very focused on dieting and their bodies and trying to fit their bodies into certain shapes that they just were not meant to be. But I fell for all of that. I was, aiming for that bulging six-pack. I wanted the whole thing. And there was a woman who went through a very dramatic body transformation. And I asked her how she did it. And she said, I had this amazing nutritionist. You should reach out to her. And so I did. And when I met with this nutritionist, this was at the start of 2020. This was like January 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I met with her. I was wearing the smallest size clothes I'd ever worn, but I still felt, like I didn't look the way I wanted to look. And I went into her, and I was teaching kickboxing. So I was very fit. And I went into her office and she took some photos of me and she said, the first thing you need to know is that you are obese. And I believed her because she was the nutritionist, right? She was the expert. So I guess I was obese. Okay. And she told me that I needed to lose, I think 15 pounds, she said. And that her plan that she was going to put me on would have me lose that weight. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to lose these 15 pounds and then I'll be happy. Then I'll be at the point where I want to be, right? Because that's the trick of diet culture. If I just do this, then I'll be happy with the way I look, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her plan basically put my body into starvation mode. The first night I read my kids their bedtime story and I got up from my son's bed and I almost passed out. I lost 5 pounds in day one because I just was starving myself. Following her meal plan, I put it in quotes because it really was just like a starvation
diet. Were you eating
diet.
air? I mean,
basically, yeah. I mean, it was like kale with like 5 grape tomatoes. And, it was awful. I was able to have 1 teaspoon of nut butter once a week. It was really ridiculous, Michele. But this is it though, right? Like if we can't zoom out and look and say, this is insane. Of course I'm not doing this. If we're stuck in it, we do it. And so I followed that program. COVID happened, the you-know-what hit the fan, and I still followed her program. I did it for 3 months. So it was now March 2020 when I reached the end of the program. COVID was at like full tilt.
Yeah.
The timing of all of it was insane. And so we had our final meeting virtually. I had weighed in that morning and I had lost the 15 pounds. And so I got on the call with her and I said, I did it. I'm at this weight. And she said, okay, well, you really need to lose like another 5 or 6 pounds because you still have a ways to go. And I got off. I said, okay, thank you very much for everything, got off the call with her and unleashed a barrage of expletives, which I will not share here, but are in the book. And then I proceeded to walk downstairs into my pantry, open a new jar of vanilla almond butter, and I ate the entire thing. That was when I realized I am done with this.
That was Jen's revenge tour. It was the tour to your pantry. Oh my God.
It was, my period stopped while I was working with her. I look at photos of myself now from that last day because I took the after photo and I look awful, gaunt, awful. So anyway, all of this is to say that was, to answer your question, that was the moment where I realized, F this. I am out of diet culture. This is absolutely ridiculous. If this is what I have to go through to get to a certain weight and then only to be told it's not enough, forget it. I'm just going to practice existing in my body the way that it is. It's COVID. We're all at home wearing our pajamas anyway. So forget it. I'll just see what happens. And what happened was I gained back those 15 pounds. I gained an additional 15 pounds.
Exactly.
And then since then, I have really not succumbed to any diet culture stuff. I've just been working on my personal relationship with food and with eating and being in touch with my body and my hunger cues. And my body has taken up the shape that it always should have been.
Yeah. Here's the other thing too, and we don't have to, get into the whole long-term story here, but if we would just focus on health from the inside out, so do what's right for our insides, it will start to reflect on the outside. And what I try to tell my clients, because most of them are in midlife, I would say most of my clients are probably 50 plus, if not 55 plus, that it's really about laying this healthy foundation for your 80-year-old self, your 90-year-old self. Yep. And if you're doing that, if you're lifting weights and you're eating the protein and doing all that, and I know we talk about this all the time, you're doing the stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's really about your biomarkers and those sorts of things. It's not about trying to fit into your jeans that you wore in 2010. Exactly. That ship sailed.
Exactly. Yep.
Just get over
it. Women who talk about being, this is what I love about us, is that I work with women who are like in a stage of life right before the stage of life that you work with them. I feel like they just, it's like, come to me and then go to Michele and you'll be all set.
Yeah, right.
So the women so I still teach fitness. I teach strength training classes and rebounder classes on a little miniature trampoline. And so the women that I work with at my fitness studio are generally in their 30s and 40s. Some are in their early 50s as well. And, when they're in there, especially the younger ones, and they're talking about, they've got to get their pre-baby body back. I usually zip it because it's not, they're having their conversations. I'm not going to insert myself into their conversations, but I'll take a moment here to say what I wish I always said to them, which is, you can't get your pre-baby body back because you are in a post-baby body. You have had a baby. Your body forevermore is a post-baby body. So instead of trying to become the body that you had, embrace the body that you have now. And as you said, work from the inside out. Focus on connecting to your body now, as it is now, and doing what you need to do for yourself now, instead of trying to be what you used to be, because you simply are not. You are someone who has given birth. Your body has changed. For the women you work with, it's like you are now in menopause. You can't get your pre-menopausal body back or what, you can't. You are in a different body. So embrace it. Connect to it.
I'm getting ready to do the season changeover of my closets.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And
it's hoodie season. I'm so excited.
I know. It was 50 some degrees this morning. There are things in my closet that I know darn well will never fit me again. They're just not going to, because my body has changed.
Oh, shoot.
And it's okay to hang on to that stuff, but just have that realistic expectation that maybe they're not going to fit. And it may free your soul to get rid of some of those things. So that's just my little aside.
But exactly. It's about just, giving yourself that grace and just meeting yourself where you are. One of the first things I always say when I start a fitness class and we're just doing the active stretch to warm up is I say to everybody, take this time to connect to your body, because we are constantly told that we need to be different, look different, and disconnect from our bodies. Diet culture disconnects you from your body and your hunger cues. Drinking disconnects you from your body because it numbs your brain. And so I always say to everybody, just get into your body, like put your own body on like a skin, really get in there and connect and feel how you are feeling today, not how you felt yesterday, not how you want to feel, how you are feeling right now in this moment. I think that connection is so important, and just accepting and appreciating where you are.
Yeah. I need to ask you this. Was there a chapter or a section in the book that was particularly hard for you to write, or maybe healing?
Well, most of the book was.
Okay.
Because it was revisiting childhood trauma, and really aspects of my childhood that I couldn't even name as trauma until I wrote the book and thought that was traumatic and it's okay. So yeah, there were many moments of the book that I wrote that were very hard to write. And I initially glossed over some things. And I worked with 2 editors during my writing process. And I am forever grateful to them, because they both said to me at different stages of the process, okay, this scene, you really need to go there. You can't just gloss over this, because no one's going to connect with it. Your readers are going to be able to tell that you're just glossing over it. You really need to go there. And I would say the things that were hardest for me to write, oh gosh, I mean, a lot of my drinking stuff was very hard for me to write. There was one hangover that I had. It was really the first time where I was sick. And it was the first time my kids saw me that ill from drinking the night before. And I had to cover up for it. My husband had to cover for me. It was just an awful experience. And writing about that, and I'm like closing my eyes as I'm telling you this, because it was really hard to do. And it's even hard for me to say it now, but writing the dialogue between me and my kids that morning when I woke up, and they were like fresh faced and being so cute. And I'm there in bed, like reeking of alcohol and trying to pretend that I didn't feel horrible. And scenes like that were very, very challenging for me to write, and some other stuff too that was very challenging. Some stuff in my sex life that happened that was very hard that we don't have to get into here. But I'll tell you, writing through all of that was the most healing thing I have ever done. And I have been in therapy. I'm in therapy now. I have an amazing therapist. I've done some inner child work with a coach, which I actually talk about in the book. And all of that has been healing as well. But the most healing thing I've ever done has been writing this book and going back to those scenes, putting myself back into my childhood self, into my adolescent self, my early motherhood self, writing my way through it, and then getting to the point in the book where I have processed all of that and I embrace who I am now. The most healing thing I've ever done, for sure.
I want to destigmatize the therapy thing. You brought up...
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah, you brought up having a therapist, and I think this is a great segue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why people find it so hard to admit or to even seek, therapy. Thoughts on that?
It's really too bad. Well, my thoughts are that the world would be a better place if everyone was in therapy. And finding my therapist, I started working with my therapist. It's been almost a year. I went to her last October, and it was so I finished my manuscript last December. So I started seeing a therapist for the last 2 months that I was writing my manuscript. And this book would not be what it is if I had not started therapy and really given myself that safe space to access parts of myself that I then was able to put into the book. I adore my therapist. She is amazing. If she were here in this interview, she would say, like, Jen, you're the one doing all the work. You're the one doing all the work. But really, she creates for me a safe space where I can just have time to process things without judgment, without guilt. I can just show up exactly as I am. And work through things in a way that you just can't when you're on your own and distracted by what's going on in your everyday life.
Yeah.
And she also is very gifted in that she's able to draw parallels. So I'll come into her sometimes with just, 4 different anecdotes. I'll be like, here's what happened this week. And I'll tell her all this stuff. And then she is able to like draw out these parallels between these different stories and offer me that just like missing piece where I realized like, oh, that's why these different things that happened have been weighing on me. Things from motherhood and partnership and professional work. They all tie together. And that's one beautiful thing about therapy. When you find a good therapist, and you have to find a good one, and that can take a lot of work, because I've had some stinkers as well. Some therapists I should have broken up with way sooner than I did. But when you find the right person and it's the right fit, it is just the most beautiful, healing, empowering experience.
This morning, I was reading an article about divorce.
Ooh.
And I was reading it to my husband. He's looking at me like, are you trying to tell me something? I'm like, no, honey, you're stuck with me. But I often think that women get to this place in life where maybe they haven't rediscovered themselves yet, or maybe they have.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they are starting to rediscover themselves, whether it's, the kids have left the nest, whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're starting to think, this isn't really what I want for the next 20 years. And maybe if we were a little more inclined to seek therapy, help, whatever, maybe fewer of us would get into this conundrum of, I'm married to this person. This is not, what I signed up for.
Yep.
And, I just thought that was so interesting that this article about divorce really shows that women in that age group, so kind of my age group, are the ones that are seeking divorce. And it's just part of this whole rediscovery thing, is that women are finally maybe figuring things out for themselves that they've kept stifled all those years.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And I think there are periods of transition in our lives as women where all of this stuff just kind of comes to a head, right? Like for me, it's the transition from early motherhood to what I call mid-motherhood. So for me, that was my son, my younger child, my son starting kindergarten. So both kids got into school, were in full-time school. And therefore I was out of the nursery school slog and all that, both kids in school full-time. That was when I started stopping drinking, because I got to this point and I thought, okay, I now have all this time back. What am I doing with my life? Like, let me look at things and okay, well, alcohol's got to get figured out. So I think it's true. There are just these phases in our lives, whether it's early motherhood to mid-motherhood to empty nest, perimenopause to menopause, where we have kind of like a reckoning. I call it like self-spelunking, because that's how it felt for me. Like I just was sort of like self-spelunking, like going inside, getting in there, going deep into my guts and thinking about how I want to show up, and then coming to terms with the fact that I was not showing up the way I want to show up. And that can be very scary. And then doing that individually, but also in a partnership. I mean, it's very, very complex. And I totally agree that therapy, whether it's individual therapy or couples counseling, is a great step to take, proactively instead of reactively. But if you end up doing it reactively, that's also okay, because at least you're in there.
Yeah. So you kind of went at this your way.
Mm-hmm.
You quit drinking, and then the ball started rolling in your self-discovery.
Yes.
How do you suggest women they're stuck, whether they're 45 or they're 65, they feel stuck? How do they start? What's the first step?
I would say, I love this question so much. And I wish it was I want everyone who feels stuck to hear this. So I think you need to try your best, because this is hard, to kind of zoom out of your life and look down onto your life and think, what is happening here that's not serving me? Is there some area of this? In my coaching practice, I do an exercise called the life circle, where it's almost like a Trivial Pursuit pie, and you break a circle up into different pie pieces of your life. So professional, motherhood, partnership, individual goals, hobbies, community, whatever kind of makes up your life circle as you see it. And then you look at your circle and you think, how fulfilling are each of these pieces of the pie? And for me, that was really helpful in my own journey. And I think it's just really helpful to kind of do that. Like, take a survey and you'll see it. If you take that time to zoom out, look at your life, you will see if you let yourself, you will see the area where something's not going on. Maybe your partnership is great. Maybe your relationship with your kids is great and you're feeling really good about who you are as a parent. But maybe your professional life is not serving you and you need to make a job change, or you need to go back to work, or you need to retire, or whatever it may be. And once you identify that area that is keeping you stuck and holding you back, then you have to be brave enough to do the work to unstick yourself.
Yeah, because this is my mantra, and this was one of my 5 pillars. Staying stuck because you fear change is the scariest proposition of all.
Yes. Yes. And it's also a choice, right? Staying stuck is a choice. It is not happening by default. It is not happening to you. You are choosing to stay stuck.
Yeah.
And people are going to hear that and be like, they're going to want to tell me to, be quiet. Because that can be really hard to hear.
Yeah.
But it's true. That was a choice. That is a choice. I chose to continue drinking. It didn't just happen to me. Nobody took a bottle of wine and poured it down my throat. I chose to drink. I chose to not change my relationship with alcohol until I zoomed out, looked at myself and thought, my relationship with alcohol is really holding me back. And it's something that I've got to address. And then I made the choice to address it. But in the meantime, it's not like it was happening by default. I was choosing to not create change.
I know we talk about alcohol a lot on the podcast, and I don't make apologies for that. And the reason we talk about alcohol a lot is because I've had my own epiphany around my relationship with alcohol. But also because in my coaching, I see where alcohol really pulls women down.
Yep.
And I figure if the women that I coach have issues, then I know my listeners are also struggling with that tug of war around that nightly glass or two of wine or whatever you choose as your poison. And I love when people like Jen Butler are brave and they can come forward and say, hey, this was bad. This was bad for my life. I made this choice. I chose me.
Yes. Ugh.
I chose me over alcohol. And for anyone that has tried to quit, you know full well that it's not easy. And so kudos, Jen, for not just sharing your story about alcohol, but just your story in general, because I think of all the women out there that are listening right now who are nodding their heads going, yeah, I get it. I get it. And I want to talk about your book, Mom Rediscovered. And I want people to get the book, but think of the women in your life who would benefit from hearing Jen's story. And even if it may not resonate 100% with everyone, every aspect of it, it's really the theme here is stepping out and not being afraid of basically self-care.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you just said about choosing you, making that active choice to choose yourself. And you have to practice doing that. Practice is one of my favorite words. And you have to do it again and again and again. It's not just like you're one and done, right? It's practicing choosing yourself every day, multiple times a day in multiple ways.
And it's not selfish.
It is not selfish. It's vital. It really is. And whenever I still get like little pangs of guilt. And I always try to think about my daughter and my son too, but especially my daughter, and to think about, do I want her at age almost 45 not choosing herself? Heck no. I want her choosing herself. I want her choosing herself now and always. I want her putting herself first. I want her preserving herself so she can show up for other people and learning to take care of herself and trusting that by prioritizing herself, she will be able to better show up for other people in her life.
And it's such an important point, because I think so often women think of, it's selfish. Putting myself first, that just sounds so selfish. But at the end of the day, we're only going to be better for other people. And you know what? I think that's a great thing.
Yep. Choosing yourself and choosing to take up space. And that was one thing I realized when I stopped drinking, but also when I quit diet culture. So really, that piece also is so important. I know we talk about the drinking a lot, but the subtitle of my book is My Midlife Breakup with Drinking and Diet Culture, because they both were such important breakups in my life. And they both of those things made me feel so small and made me want to just shut down and be quiet and go in my little box and stay in my little box. And now that I have broken out of that box, I feel so much more myself, and I'm just so much more content. Yeah. I really, and just at peace with myself. That you use the phrase tug of war. And that's such a perfect phrase for that cognitive dissonance that happens, not just with alcohol, but also with food and all the rest of it, right? This feeling like, oh, I shouldn't do that. But I'm going to, blah, blah, blah. And the more we can free ourselves from that cognitive dissonance and just show up as ourselves and embrace who we are, it's just so much more, peaceful. Life is just so much more peaceful and happier.
Absolutely. All right. Book launch official date is
October 21st.
All right. So this podcast will air right around that time. And I know, I'm too. We're going to do a really fun bookstore event together in Cincinnati, where I live, this November.
I can't wait.
And what are you most looking forward to about connecting live with readers?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I just can't wait to meet you, Michele, and give you such a big hug. I think it is really magical when women come together and just show up honest, open, authentic as we are. That's one reason why I love teaching fitness and why I am so excited to go on my book tour, because I cannot wait to just be there like, hey, I wrote this book. There's all these scenes where I'm just like such a hot mess, but here I am holding my book in my hands. Like, what do you want to do? Like, what are you up to? What's your journey? And also just to hear, I've already gotten such amazing feedback from my advanced readers about aspects of the book that really that they really connected with. And I can't wait to hear those stories in person, to hear from people. I thought it was just me, but it isn't. Now I realize it's not. Or, you went through this. It reminded me of when I went through this in my life. And I can't wait. And I learned so much from my coaching clients, my fitness clients. And now I just can't wait for everything that I'm going to learn from my readers.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. Where can listeners pre-order the book, Mom Rediscovered? and then find you, your Substack, and follow you online?
Yes. Okay. So here's all the info. You can pre-order my book, Mom Rediscovered, at Amazon, also at Barnes & Noble, which is bn.com, and also at bookshop.org. Another great thing to do is to go to your local bookstore and pre-order it through them. They will be able to order it for you. And then that helps get the book on their radar, which is also really helpful for me. So any of those ways, whatever you want to do is great. And I am very appreciative of all of that. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok. My handle is at Jen Butler Writes. And so you can find me there. I'm on those platforms all the time. My book website is momrediscovered.com. So that has all the information about my book and where to order it. It also has a free book club kit that I completely nerded out designing and creating. I love that project so much. I love a worksheet. So this was like a whole thing of worksheets. So that is available as a free download on my website. And if you want me to be a guest at your book club, I would love to do that. So there's also a link on my website that connects you to a request form if you would like me to be at your book club. Oh, my dogs are chirping up again. Isn't that great?
Oh, I know. I was like, okay, they're like, okay, Mom.
Thanks so much, dogs, for coming on at the end here.
Yeah, there's like, Mom, that's enough.
And then my Substack is Best Mom Never. And that link is substack.com/Jen Butler or something like that. But just search for Best Mom Never on Substack and you can join that community there.
Perfect. Jen, this is terrific. I look forward to seeing you in November. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me back, Michele, and thanks for everything.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and review the podcast where you listen. And if you'd like to join the Asking for a Friend community, click on the link in the show notes to sign up for my weekly newsletter where I share midlife wellness and fitness tips, insights, my favorite finds, and recipes.